Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. We're going to be talking about Dynamite from March 15th. The odds of March. What's up? Okay, news and notes first. Before we get into Dynamite. Alright, so we're going to get into the Raj Giri QT Marshall thing because I didn't do a video on it. I didn't talk about it. At least I don't believe I did. It was a Twitter spat that really, once again, made AEW come across as absolutely second rate. QT Marshall isn't just a wrestler, however. QT Marshall works in the office of AEW. QT Marshall is a producer for AEW. He is a trainer in the Nightmare Factory. So this is a mentor and a figure that is supposed to be a role model for young wrestlers. So Raj Giri is the former owner of Wrestling Inc. He sold the site a long time ago. Now he kind of does YouTube stuff, and he's just basically a very opinionated, quote-unquote, expert fan, like a lot of the wrestling journalists on Twitter. So it all began, thankfully, NoDQ.com has the rundown, because I don't want to spend too much time on this. So Raj Giri critiques the booking of Wardlow by saying the booking of Wardlow since Double or Nothing, I don't get it. QT's response was, Raj, you do not get it because you have no understanding of the actual inner workings of professional wrestling. All right, so let's pause right here. What does this have to do with you making Wardlow look like a goofball since Double or Nothing? What was that, last year? Where he crushed MJF, then went on to fight security guards for weeks before losing his title to Samoa Joe, before Samoa Joe lost the belt to Darby Allin, and then he finally gets the belt back from Samoa Joe only to lose it to Powerhouse Hobbs 3 or 4 days later. What kind of special secret sauce do I need to have to understand that you booked this guy like shit? Like, what more do I need to know? Like, what? I mean, but besides the fact that it's the ye old appeal to expertise or whatever they want to call it, just because you've never done something doesn't mean you don't understand it. Well, why is this building leaning? Well, you don't understand architecture, so of course you don't understand why the building is leaning. Well, guess why are these stairs falling apart? Like, I ordered concrete stairs. Why are they breaking? And well, because you don't understand stonemasonry. That's why they're falling apart. It's like, no, that's not how this works. It's not how this works. Just because somebody isn't an expert doesn't mean that they don't know when something is amiss. I don't need to know anything about weather to know when it's raining. All right. I don't need to have a meteorologist degree or whatever you need to do to be the weatherman to know when it's snow outside. So the idea that you need to have some kind of secret inside information to know that somebody's booked poorly on TV is a terrible argument in and of itself, and he should be embarrassed for making it. They continued. Raj Giri says, as a TV personality, has anyone give a F about QT? Hey man, I know you think you mean a lot, but you really literally mean very little. And before you say, but same as you, just remember, I don't give a F. You are ratings poison. Do you really think anyone gives a F about you? Outside of the people you work with directly, you have the personality of a piece of shit. F off, man. Now, he did escalate. That's an escalation. That's a hell of an escalation from Raj. So QT says, oh, Raj, if you only knew, don't get so angry. But if you'd like to do some actual reporting, I can get you an all-access pass to the next event. Then you can find out what the people I work with really think of me. Notice I didn't say a press pass. That's for real reporters. So just like his boss, again, I keep saying it, it all starts at the top. Tony Khan, goes after Ariel Helwani. So you know why CM Punk was able to go after Nick Hausman and why QT Marshall felt comfortable going after Raj Giri? Because he thinks Raj Giri still owns Wrestling Inc. So that's why he's doing this, by the way. Spoilers. We'll get to it in a second. So Raj Giri says, hi, dude. If you do jack shit, why would I give a F? I'm semi-retired. I don't give a F. Act like you can intimidate me again. You never could, never will. QT response, you should retire. Hard to retire from something you're not successful at, nor make full-time living from. That would be like me in 2016 when I had my neck surgery saying I'm retiring. I said I'm not wrestling anymore. Just say you aren't giving out bad opinions anymore. Well, he had a good opinion. The booking of Wardlow has been garbage. The booking, the writing, the storytelling with Wardlow has not been good. I don't care what you want to call it. It ain't been good. Raj Giri responds, I will end this here. QT in private if you effing shit on me again. Don't act like you're a success. You're an effing loser, mate. And I never brag about shit. But if you need to do it, let's do it in private. QT said, do what in private? We have a building and I know a great lawyer that can draw up a waiver for you to sign if you'd really like to do this. I genuinely don't mind. Success or not, I'm a grown man willing to kick your teeth down your effing throat if you'd like. So he wanted to get him to sign a waiver so that he can abuse him in a training scenario when his job is to literally be a trainer for young talent. I'm not going to read the big mea culpa from QT Marshall because Raj Giri went through, deleted all of his comments. That's why, I'm glad that the internet never forgets. But QT Marshall once again starts a pity party in order for you not to feel bad about him being an absolute idiot. He says, for those who actually know me, the human being, they could tell you that there is not a single word that can be said about me on Twitter or even face to face that will hurt my feelings. Because right before AEW started, I had negative $27 in my account. And I was trying to figure out how I was going to pay my rent at the training facility. So that's the worst it was going to get for me. So you got this guy who's been wrestling a long time. And he still managed to have no money in 20. That means you're not good at it, right? If you are really doing something and you've been doing it for a long time and you have not made any money from it, I'm sorry, brother. You probably need to get into a different business. But I guess you found a way to succeed somehow. So he says, when Raj said, let's handle this in private, I explained to him that we have a building, the Nightmare Factory, and we could settle it. I've been saying, come to my effing factory and fight me, you piece of shit, since starting the factory on AEW TV. I also did not apologize to Raj when we hashed it out. I believe that was fake, considering I wasn't, and I'm not sorry for our interactions. He understood my feelings again. The last thing I want to be is fake. So, for starters, nobody would know what you've been saying about the factory on TV because you haven't been on TV. That's for starters. Secondly, the fact that this guy, again, mentored a young talent, a producer, would say, well, I did threaten to kick the guy's teeth down his throat, but I'm not going to apologize for it. I can honestly say, big up on the non-apology. Too many guys tweet and delete. Too many guys try to back things off and apologize, try to hash things out. I get it. I really get it. But it comes across like some real bully stuff when, you're a wrestler. He's just a small, I think Raj is in his late 40s, 50s or whatever. Like, what physically was he going to do? Really? He wasn't going to do much of anything. So that to me seems a little silly. So he continues. He says, as regards to me as a talent, if you do not like me, great. If you think I am not worthy of TV, fantastic. Again, these are all opinions. Once again, being honest, I listen to the live crowd. The paying audience in the arena is what I go by, especially in a world where someone could create an account, say something harsh, and then delete their entire profile. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I don't have to be. I just have to do my job, whatever that is that evening. All right, that's a fair argument. That applies to everybody. But here's the thing. The live audience does not care about you. There was no big pop when QT Marshall came out. Nobody lost their mind because QT Marshall came out. Nobody cared that you came out. Everybody groaned. Some people got up and walked out. Bro, you ruined Powerhouse Hobbs' moment. You ruined it. It's awful. This is terrible. We're going to skip ahead again. It says, in closing, this isn't supposed to get people to take sides. This is just so people can maybe have a little idea as to who I am and what I stand for. I have 6 screws in my neck from professional wrestling. I would gladly do it all over again. To the fans, watch wrestling, especially AEW, love it, hate it, and be careful who you tag when you give your opinion, as some will clap back. Look, that's fine. But I've been saying on this channel for a really long time that you don't have to respond to everybody. You don't have to respond to everything. One thing that I've noticed is that AEW's hostility towards wrestling journalists that don't kiss their ass is very, very high. Like, they think that WWE doesn't like wrestling media. Yeah, they just ignore you, though. AEW is actively attacking the wrestling media in ways that I have never seen before, that are almost Trump-like. You know, that's the weird thing. Like, this company is full of Trump haters, and their attitudes towards the media is almost exactly Trump-like. Oh, this journalist called me out, so let me threaten to kick his teeth down his throat. Let me spend 15 minutes eating a muffin, trash talking this reporter. Let's, me call this guy out on Twitter and call him a fraud out of nowhere. It's like, wow. It's possible for you to just not be gotten to and to sort of just chill. It's, even if it's just one guy's opinion anyway. And it wasn't like it was an opinion that was specifically brutal to QT Marshall. Again, I read what the guy said. He said he didn't understand the booking of Wardlow. He didn't say, man, QT Marshall, he sure is the shits, and then added QT Marshall and said, you're the shits, bro, or something like that. He didn't do anything like that. He said, I don't get it. And then QT Marshall sought to attack him and said, you don't understand the inner workings of the business. As if, that makes things better. I'm pretty sure Arn Anderson doesn't get it. All right. I'm pretty sure Jerry Lynn doesn't get it. I'm pretty sure Dean Malenko, if he's still alive, he don't get it. All right. Nobody's going to get it. If you would sit down and explain this to any sentient human being, which you've done to Wardlow, they're not going to get it. If they care about wrestling, even a smidgen, they're not going to, it doesn't work this way. Let's move on. All right. The second thing we want to talk about is AEW's second or third television show that's supposed to be coming up. So from F4W Online, AEW, Warner Brothers Discovery, finalizing deal for their third weekly wrestling show. It says it's possibly going to air on Saturdays. So Andrew Zarian of Matt Man's podcast says it appears Khan is about to find out if it's true whether Warner Brothers Discovery wants more AEW. And it says, on Saturday's edition of Matt Man, Zarian reported that AEW and Warner Brothers Discovery are closing in on a deal to add a third AEW show to the schedule. Similar to Rampage, this would be a 1-hour broadcast. It says Zarian didn't know when the new show would be officially announced, but said to expect the news to come within the next month. It says, while the official particulars are unknown, Zarian tweeted out a hint that people should believe it will be on Saturdays at 6:05 p.m., the previous day and time of WCW Saturday Night on TBS. He could not confirm that, however. Now, it's been, the article ends there pretty much. So the talk is that there's a show called AEW Collision that might be upcoming. I don't see how it's going to be any different from Rampage or any different from any other show that they have going on here. Here's the thing. AEW needs to make Dynamite better. They need to make Rampage watchable. I don't know if they want to add a third show so quickly, but I will say this. It is very good that AEW has more interest from Warner Brothers because it makes it more likely that they're going to be renewed in the future if they can get a third television show. They already produce a lot of content for TBS and TNT, and that's great, and I can appreciate that, and I support it. I support AEW still being alive. I crap on the talent, I crap on the shows when necessary, but I don't want AEW to die. I really don't want it to die. But right now they can barely keep Dynamite above water. And that's their flagship show. And there is no secondary show that's good. So, maybe the pay-per-views. But considering we don't know what this show is likely to be, it could be a highlight show. It could be, dark matches. It could be some of anything. We don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see if the third show actually appears. This obsession with these guys being WCW by saying, okay, well, we're going to do it at 6:05 on Saturday seems kind of cringe to me. It's like you're just trying to take WCW spot. It's almost like, you're the son putting on daddy's shoes and wearing daddy's sports jacket. It's hanging off of you. You look silly. It's not cute. Do your own thing at some point. And I don't get it, but it ain't for me to get. All right, one last note we're going to discuss before we get into the show. SES Scoops says, quote, AEW talent might not be paid more for competing at house shows. Now, this is absolutely ridiculous. Now, here's what it's coming from Brian Alvarez of Wrestling Observer Radio. He says, quote, WWE has these downside guarantee contracts. So if you do a house show, you make money. If you don't do a house show, you don't. As far as I know, and I always bring this up when people talk about CM Punk should come back and the Elite should feud with him because everybody would make so much money, I will bring up to people, no, everybody would not make so much money. Maybe AEW would make money, but these guys are not on downside contracts. The Young Bucks are going to make exactly as much money if they sit at home as they do this feud with CM Punk. There are no downside guarantees. Let's pause here because a lot of people don't know what a downside guarantee is. So a downside guarantee is a minimal amount of money that you will make on a contract. So let's say you sign $100,000 with like $60,000 downside guarantee. That means if you're going to make at least $60,000, regardless of what happens, you're going to get at least $60,000. So if you sign a multi-million-dollar contract with, $500,000 downside guarantee, that means you're going to make at least $500,000. Okay, so that's basically your base salary. That's the minimum you can make. Everything else is the maximum. Now, what Alvarez is saying is that AEW doesn't have downside guarantees, but what it sounds like is they may have straight up salaries, which means you make the same regardless of your work ethic, regardless of what the work that you do, which means that if he is correct that, the Young Bucks get paid the same amount of money for working, let's say, a pay-per-view as they would for sitting at home, I don't see the incentive to go to work. To be quite honest, maybe that's why Miro was chilling at home and why Malachi Black was chilling at home for so long. Maybe they was like, hey, there's no real incentive for me to go to work. But this is more from Alvarez. He says, quote, there are no bonuses in AEW. We've never heard anyone talk about a bonus, a pay-per-view bonus or anything like that. This is not WWE. And it's a thing with the house shows as well. Like, I don't know if house shows are going to be financially viable because I don't know if the talent are making any more money for being on this house show. Is Britt Baker making any more money for being on this house show? Britt Baker and John Moxley, Anna Jay, JAS, everybody working this house show, for all I know, when they signed their initial contracts, they were just given a guaranteed contract. You may end up doing house shows, you may not. You may end up doing TV, you may not. You may end up on Rampage, you may not. You may be booked for 2 months. You may be off for 2 months. That's an interesting deal. And it would make sense for AEW if they considered to use their talent regularly, like a Britt Baker. They use her pretty regularly. It would make no sense to pay Britt Baker the same amount of money regardless of her role. Let's say she makes the same amount of money if she's a manager as she is if she's in the championship match. Again, what's the incentive for her to want to be in a championship match? And you're blowing money by not putting her in matches. I mean, if you're going to pay her whatever it is he's paying her, you would want to maximize that, wouldn't you? Now, WWE, they do give appearance fees. As far as I know, if you show up and you're not used, you still get paid. You get paid a certain amount for appearing. it will go towards your downside guarantee. That's why Chris Jericho says he got paid like $500 for showing up at a house show once. But I don't think he was used. I think he just kind of showed up. So these contracts sound a little crazy. But not even the NFL has fully guaranteed contracts. I know people seem to think that they do, but they do not. The NFL does not have fully guaranteed contracts. Let's move on. Alvarez continues. You're going to make the same money no matter what. So I don't know what the budget is for these house shows. They literally may be just renting a building. And then there's the transportation costs and everything like that. Maybe you run in an area, where you can sell a decent number of tickets because there's not TV events there usually. And you're not paying a ton of money for the talent because they're all under guaranteed deals. It might be financially feasible unless you draw 300 people or something like that. So I don't know the answers to these questions, but we're going to know the answers because if they run a lot of house shows, then it's working out. And if they don't, then it's because it's not. Well, that's pretty obvious. He's learned a lot from his pal Dave Meltzer. If you do a lot of the one thing, that means that it's successful. If you don't do that thing anymore, well, that means it wasn't. Well, obviously. Come on, Alvarez, obviously. I don't know what the purpose of these house shows are. I know that Tony Khan says he wants to start a live event business. And he wants to, I guess warm up some markets, but if it's going to cost you a lot of money to run these shows, and then you're likely not going to make all that money back, because part of the draw for AEW is it's only on television. So that means you get the idea of if it's coming to your town, it's televised. While WWE, they're benefiting from their live event business right now because it's hot right now. There was I wouldn't say 2 years ago because that's unfair. The pandemic was happening. Let's say 5 years ago, where people were talking about like house shows were dead, and it wasn't wrong. It wasn't wrong to say the house shows were dead. It was a question about whether house shows were even still financially viable. For a lot of talent, they made no sense. They didn't like it. John Moxley is notorious for this. He wrote in his book an entire paragraph being very angry about house shows and how stupid they were. So it's very interesting. And also, John Moxley is a very interesting case. We're going to talk about it in 1 second about him and this house show stuff. So, interestingly, if they're not making any more money, there's no incentive for the talent to even care about these house shows. There's no incentive for them to even want to attend these house shows. So, and Sammy Guevara, most recently came out and said he didn't want to be on the house shows. Now, he said he didn't want to be on the house shows because he doesn't want to, his style is to take a lot of bumps, do a lot of flip-flop flying, and he doesn't want to, he wants to save his bumps, which is actually smart on his behalf. When you work a style like his, why do you want to do that at a house show where no television, and you crash and burn and you end up really hurting yourself, but it was in front of a crowd of 1,500 and, you got nothing out of it really. That should tell you to change your style though, right? Jim Cornette already went off on Sammy Guevara about this. He was absolutely right. Change your style for starters. Stop taking so many bumps. Learn how to actually work. And therefore you wouldn't have to do the flip-flop flying stuff too much. But also, you need to do house shows because you need reps. You need to get better. I know it's a foreign concept for a lot of AEW wrestlers, but you suck right now and you can do better. And you can get better. And it's better to get better now instead of trying to be 38 and get better. So Sammy Guevara is 28 maybe? He's better off trying to really improve his skill set now and maybe even get some reps cutting promos. There are some benefits to house shows, absolutely. That's what I would do. I would go to the house shows and say, look, let me talk in front of the audience for 2 minutes or whatever. Try out catchphrases, throw stuff out there, try out, your gimmicks or whatever. Nobody's watching. People are going to record it on their phone, but so what? It's not on TV. It's not part of the angle. It's not a part of, kayfabe. It's off in the weeds. You're just trying something different. That's the good thing about house shows. The bad thing is you got to take bumps. And, if you're not going to get paid any more money, then why should you want to do the house shows? All right, so Sammy Guevara doesn't want to do the house shows, and like I said, Jon Moxley notoriously hates house shows, just notoriously hates house shows. So apparently, in order to do the AEW house show, he had to get pulled from another show in the UK. So I think they were doing a Scrapper Mania show, and Jon Moxley was supposed to be on it, and then he ended up getting pulled for the AEW house show. It's already starting out swimmingly. You know, I think I don't know if it's the first house show, but one of their first house shows already conflicts with Jon Moxley's schedule. So, and since AEW is paying him more money, what's going to end up happening is he got pulled and he's going to get replaced by some lesser talents. I hate to put it that way, but it is what it is. And the fans who bought tickets to Scrapper Mania to see Jon Moxley, you just got fucked. Okay? It didn't work out. And see, this is why, you know, exclusive contracts actually work out, because you don't have to do stuff like this. You know? You don't have to say, yes, you went and booked your own shows out here in blah, blah, blahville. Well, I need you for this. So since I'm paying you more money, you're going to have to back out of that show. I mean, the stuff that's been going on with Jon Moxley, with him getting pulled from the indies, you know, he's already been, I guess, blocked from doing GCW shows. And now he got pulled from Scrapper Mania. You know, I can see that, you know, he maybe makes so much money it don't matter. But I'm surprised that the fans aren't grumbling yet. Maybe because nobody cares. And, you know, that's a good argument. Nobody cares about Scrapper Mania. Nobody even knows what it is. I know what it is because I watch some European wrestling shows. So I do know what it is to a degree. But I'm not married to the idea. I say absolutely go with the guy who pays you. You know, Tony Khan pays more money. He's the one, you know, feeding the family. So that's the one you should go with, you know, ultimately. But this is the danger of doing house shows. This is the danger of having quote unquote freelancers who just float around and do their own thing. You never know what the hell is going on. And then you have to change your schedule and disappoint your fans because there's other things going on, you know. But there's another interesting thing here that AEW, one of the things that really made people join them was because of the lighter schedule. No house shows meant a lighter schedule, and people were making more money to work less than they would make in WWE. So now, you know, of course, this is just an experimental situation when it comes to the house shows. But now you have to ask the question, if AEW is going to be running house shows, what's the benefit to AEW over WWE? I guess it would be creative freedom, but is it really creative freedom if you're not really on TV? I mean, look at a guy like Miro. So it's like AEW is chipping away at their own strengths. They said lighter schedule, now they're starting to introduce house shows and they're wanting more TV product. They said that, you know, the women would make as much as the men. I'm not sure that that's happening. They said creative control. Now they're saying, okay, well, you can have your creative control, but you could do it on ROH, or you could do it on AEW Dark. You're not necessarily going to get it on Dynamite. And those are interesting things. And it sounds like it's almost like they're self-wounding in terms of trying to make themselves more and more like WWE. And I get it. They're trying to grow. They want to grow their business, and part of growing their business is doing house shows. Is, you know, creating a live event business. It's an expansion. It's going to be an interesting situation to see how guys develop and who is going to piss off and who is going to run off and who's going to not be interested. So that's going to be an interesting thing going forward. All right, so let's get into this show. All right, now let's talk about this show. All right. The opening segment was MJF's Rebar Mitzvah, which included a tiny hat. The tiny hat supremacy. Anyway, he's got some women. That's always interesting. Always fun to see women on this show. They're wearing flats. No heels. Interesting. That's an interesting design choice. You know, let's cut to the chase. All four of the quote-unquote pillars came out. Jungle Boy, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin. Each one has wrestled MJF, and each one has lost to MJF. So now they all going to come out to state what their problem is with MJF. Jungle Boy says that his problem with MJF is that he thinks that the entire company revolves around him, and that there are plenty of people who deserve more opportunities and they don't get it, while we watch MJF do garbage wrestling and 20-minute promo segments every week. He even went as far as to say that MJF has never had to wrestle on Dark or Dark Elevation or even Rampage, that he's been treated like a superstar this entire time. Sammy Guevara said that MJF was a kiss ass, that he worked hard from the bottom, that when he came in here to AEW, he was told he was going to be a job guy and the bump guy for Chris Jericho. And he says he got himself here without the machine being behind him. So, and he's going to make himself the world champion. Darby Allin told a story about dropping out of film school because he refused to change a film that he submitted to class. And then he says that gave him the guts to be a wrestler. And that he says he's never going to change anything, and he knows he's the worst businessman, but it will never be a bidding war for Darby Allin. He said the only thing that he has a problem with when it comes to AEW is that wrestlers whine on Twitter when they don't get what they want. And he says AEW means a lot more to him than it ever did to Max. Therefore, he should be the heavyweight champion of the world. I'm sorry, they don't call it that. The AEW World Champion. So let's take this in pieces. All right. I think individually, all of them coming down there to cut down MJF is fine. You know, everybody has their own individual situations with MJF. All of them has wrestled him before and lost. All of them have very unique. Even though I think Guevara and Jungle Boy, their critiques of MJF is pretty similar. But all of them have their own story that they're bringing to the table. And they all pitched somewhat decent reasons why they should be a top contender. Unfortunately, I think Sammy Guevara lost the last big match he was in. Darby Allin did lose the last big match he was in. So Jungle Boy, of these three, is the only one that has won a match of any significance lately. MJF retaliated by saying that he never had to play daddy daycare because Jungle Boy was palling around with Christian. Sammy Guevara was under the wing of Chris Jericho, and Sting has had Darby Allin's back for over a year, and that he didn't have that. He came into this company a star, and he is still a star. At this point, I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying, "What about Cody? You know, MJF was paired up with Cody." I was like, wait a minute. Surely you don't think that Cody is on the same level as Jericho and Sting? Surely you jest. All right. No. For the record, no. Now, MJF has worked with all of these guys, I think except Sting. He spent a significant amount of time hanging out with Jericho. So he kind of shared Jericho with Guevara. But that was, I think, the closest to it. Cody was still trying to really establish himself at the time. So he wasn't really in a position to, quote unquote, mentor MJF. I mean, I guess you could say the storyline was Cody mentoring MJF. You know what? Maybe I have to pull back my criticism a little bit, because that was the storyline last I checked, is that they were doing the MJF was Cody's young boy. But they did the same thing with him and Jericho. So I see why people would say that. But I'm on a tip where I'm kind of like, I don't think Cody was on that level. And to me, it's not the same. So I'm not going to say that. It was like clearly an angle where Cody was just a veteran, just an older talent. But he wasn't like some legend that was there specifically to help MJF. You know what I'm saying? Like, it didn't feel that way to me. So MJF took off his hat as he was yelling at these guys. He was wearing a ridiculous hat. It was funny, though. It was a ridiculous hat. He was wearing sunglasses. And he removed his sunglasses to show that he has two black eyes. Both of them are bloodshot. So he was beat to shit after that Iron Man match. And you know what? Yikes. You know, like I've seen boxers come out of fights kind of that bad. You know, what the hell did Danielson do to this kid? Anyway, it was a good visual. Now, it's pretty weird that, Moxley was the guy who was getting stabbed and, barbed wire raked across his forehead, and he got hung and strangled, and he wrestled the next week. And here, Danielson and MJF just had a long match that didn't require, stabbing and, attempted murder. And both of them are on the shelf, essentially. How does that make sense? But you asking for too much out of wrestling at that point. Ultimately, MJF got into a brawl with these guys, and he ended up falling through a cake. A very WWE segment. MJF was actually pretty good here. He's a really good promo. He played the Jew card a little bit, saying that it was the only true religion. He talked about, he gave people a little bit of a history on what a bar mitzvah is. When you're 13, you go transition to manhood. And he claimed that his bar mitzvah was called Maximania. That was the theme. He posted some pictures online too of the upside down scratch logo that the Miz ended up doing. And I remember him tweeting out that he created the upside down scratch logo, but he's not going to sue over it because he has a lot of respect for the guy who uses it now, which I think is a interesting little quip that he threw in there. Ultimately, I think the segment was fine. Doing a angle with the pillars is interesting, but I don't see why it needs to be all of them at one time. I think Jungle Boy should be singled out as being the guy who should step forward, because again, he used the last one to win a meaningful match. I don't know when the last time Sammy Guevara even won a match, let alone won a match of any significance. So I would push Jungle Boy as being the front runner here. That's just me. It doesn't matter. I don't think any of them is going to beat MJF, so it's not even anything to trip over. But I think the opening segment, I just think it was kind of long. It was 20 minutes, but mostly a good opening segment. The rebar mitzvah was interesting. Sammy Guevara saying he's going to turn it into a re-circumcision was grisly. That was some grisly stuff right there, brother. Yikes! You know what? I want to give not Sammy Guevara, so Darby Allin some credit. At least he knows that it was terrible business to go in there and say, "I'm never leaving AEW. You're going to have to take me out with the floorboards." I mean, yeah, you just basically tell your boss not to appreciate you at that point. You basically just kind of like, "I'm here for the long haul," and he's like, "I never want to change. I just want to be me." Like, you want to be 50 years old, same thing. All right. And like, you're too young to be so stubborn. Like, this the kind of attitude you would have when, like, some kind of older guy, but to be so stubborn at like 28, it's like crazy. All right. We're moving on. Okay. Cause we got a lot of stuff to get through. Blackpool Combat Club defeated the Dark Order. Of course they did. Why wouldn't they? This was a waste of my time. Okay. This was a waste of time. Moxley choked out one of the bald guys from the Dark Order. At some point, Evil Uno's shirt came off again. I don't understand what they're doing. What are they trying? Are they going for the I like fat guys demographic? They're going for the bear demographic? Is that what they're reaching for here? The worst part of the show, Juice Robinson. Juice Robinson's face was on the screen for like 90 seconds, where he did exaggerated facial. I didn't even understand what he was saying. I didn't care. He just did exaggerated facial expressions and then said, "What is Ricky Starks going to do? Jack diddly squat." And I was like, you mother. I wanted to kick him in his chest. For all the new listeners, I don't like Juice Robinson. I do like Juice Robinson's wife, but I don't like Juice Robinson. Juice Robinson sucks. The fake Macho Man stuff and the lack of charisma really just tears me apart. I can't stand that guy. All right, so the second match was the TBS Championship. The thing that they've been teasing all week. Who is going to be Jade Cargill's opponent? All week, who's going to be Jade Cargill's opponent? And the answer was Nicole Matthews. Indie legend, wrestling superstar, Nicole Matthews. She gets beat in 36 seconds or something like that. At this point, Renee gets in the ring to interview Jade Cargill. I want to call her Renee Young so badly. It's right on the tip of my tongue. And she says, "Is this what Jade was looking for in Canada?" And Canada Jade Cargill kind of intimidated Renee, like, you're from Canada, aren't you? And she's like, whoa, 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 maybe, but I'm not a wrestler. So then strange music starts to play, and it's Taya Valkyrie. Taya Valkyrie made her debut. She stands toe-to-toe with Jade Cargill. For some odd reason, Layla Gray decided she was going to step in between them. Jade bailed while Taya beat up on Layla Gray. Taya Valkyrie was kind of an expected choice, especially when everybody heard that she was leaving Impact. People was kind of like, yeah, she's the one. Now, I'm glad that they didn't do Taya as the surprise contender, because we're pretty sure that the surprise contender wasn't going to win, right? So they did something smart by putting somebody else out there, having them get beat, and then following up with the person that they really wanted to send out there. I personally probably would have done it a little bit differently, but it would have been a little bit differently. Part of the issue is that you have this winning streak with Jade Cargill that, you don't want to break, because a smart thing would have been to have it be Taya Valkyrie, but then for Jade to sort of bail and get counted out or disqualified or something like that in order to keep the story going. But if you do that, then Jade loses and you break her winning streak, so you can't do that, right? So you have to do something. So they have to insert a job girl, which deflated the entire situation, because once everybody saw that her opponent was already in the ring, they were like, okay, this is not important. And then the match ended very quickly, and now we know it's stupid and not important. And it struggled to recover from there. So Taya, I don't think she got a great reaction when she came out, but she seemed pretty happy. I'm glad she went to AEW and not back to WWE. For me, I think Taya fits more in AEW. Having watched her for a long time, I thought she had a chance in WWE, but she is older, and that locker room could use her experience and her leadership. Even some of the people who are in that locker room that have been around for a long time, most of them has not been around as long or has been as successful as Taya. So Taya is more successful than Madison Rayne, who is the coach in AEW. Taya is far more, well known in the wrestling space than Madison Rayne, who only worked in Impact. That was it. But Taya's been all over the world. Of course, she was centered in Mexico for a long time, and the only place she's actually failed was NXT. That was mostly due to, again, she was brought in during the 2020, 2021 era, where, the pandemic and stuff was happening, and, Triple H went down and Bruce took over. It's like a lot of those people just vanished from NXT, and, you could blame a lot of their failures on Vince and Bruce Pritchard wanting to take it in a different direction. And again, I'm not a person that complains about NXT 2.0. But NXT 2.0 meant that somebody like Taya, who has a lot of experience, but she's over the age of 35, they're like, this is developmental. What are we developing you for? You're 40. Baby girl, you're 40. What's happening here? So somebody like her wasn't really going to get much of a chance. So going to AEW was smart. More money. She gets to be herself. She gets to work the independents. And she's probably going to be appreciated a lot more. So I don't hate it. I think it's a good signing for AEW. It's not a very exciting one, because I think a lot of people saw it coming. But doing the expected is a good thing sometimes, Ricky Starks responded to Juice Robinson. It was a waste of his time. I wish we could just ignore Juice Robinson. I would love to just be a Juice Robinson, give you a Men in Black, thing, ink pen, and nobody knows who Juice Robinson is anymore. It's not like anybody knows who he is now. It's just that for those of us who unfortunately know who Juice Robinson is, it would be great to forget. It would be excellent to forget. Anyway, Ricky Starks says that Juice Robinson is jealous of him getting all this attention, but he deserves it. And he says that the Bullet Club was cool back in 2015 and that he needs to stand on his own 2 feet. I actually agree with that. Then he says that he wants you to bring it on anytime, any place. I'm like, all right, I guess. I wish Ricky Starks could move on as quickly as I'm about to over Juice Robinson. International Championship, Orange Cassidy versus Jeff Jarrett. Now, why wouldn't you push the title on Jeff Jarrett? What would possess you to have a championship that Jeff Jarrett is wrestling for, and for you not to put the title on Jeff Jarrett? Why wouldn't you do this? You would have to be a certified bonehead to look and say, Orange Cassidy, we're going to keep going with this. This match was chaos. It was absolute chaos. There was, and I guess that's what Jarrett wants. Jarrett, it was kind of Memphis-y. It was like 100 run-ins, and there was people all over the place, and there was guitars that weren't used, and there was an Eddie Guerrero spot where Orange Cassidy pretended he got hit, so he laid down and held his leg, and it was all ridiculous. He didn't put any effort into it. The worst sharpshooter in recorded history by Orange Cassidy. That was embarrassing. I bet it took the piss out of all the hearts. I'm pretty sure Brett turned it off at this point. I think Brett is going to join Steve Austin and Kevin Nash's pact to not watch AEW. After seeing that, it's going to be a 4 out of 10. Ain't no way he's going to watch this anymore. Anyway, Orange Cassidy wins. The title with no storyline continues. The title with no storyline and no heat. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. Moving on. Let's see. The House of Black said that they're glad somebody is now paying attention. They're going to cut the sickness out of this company. Then Jericho said this is the biggest match in Winnipeg wrestling history, this main event. The main event was a triple threat trios match, so 9 men. House of Black versus Jericho Appreciation Society versus the Elite. This wasn't my cup of tea. For me, it's just too many bodies moving around. Whenever I see somebody throw multiple men matches together, it's just an opportunity to do that goofy suplex spot where, 1 or 2 people are in the corner and then they all fall down. One of those spots, somebody jumped off something onto a bunch of other people, which is every Young Bucks match ever. It was, but the worst thing to me, if we're being honest, was the hockey fighting, quote unquote, between Jericho and Omega. I mean, literally, you would see kids play fighting and put more intensity into what they're doing in these segments. I have no idea. I have no earthly idea how 2 adult men don't look like they can throw a decent punch. I don't get it. I don't get it at all, but it's not for me. So I'm just going to say that it's not for me. House of Black win, which good. Yeah, good. So after the match, the Dark Order and the Blackpool Combat Club were still fighting, and they fought their way out into the ring area where things just, of course, continued to bust loose. It was people all over the place. Somehow Hangman Page ended up in the ring standing, staring at the ramp, waiting for the Blackpool Combat Club to come after him. When they got up on the ring apron, the Elite slid behind Hangman. The Blackpool Combat Club saw the Elite and then actually backed off. I was like, okay. They're trying something here. Okay, they're trying something here. I'm okay with that, I don't mind this. I'm not saying that I'm a big fan of the Elite or nothing like that, but I'm okay with the foreshadowing that, the Blackpool Combat Club think that the Elite have Hangman Page's back. And since they're outnumbered at that point, they like, nah, we'll catch him some other time. The Dark Order failed to be sufficient help, but the Elite is a little bit different. So now we're transitioning away from the Dark Order, finally, towards the Blackpool Combat Club versus the Elite. All right, cool. So I guess is this going to be the impetus to bring Danielson back in? But Danielson was a huge babyface. Do you want to turn him heel? Is that the idea is that when the Blackpool Combat Club turned heel kind of out of nowhere, so are we now going to turn Danielson too, or are we going to replace Danielson in the Blackpool Combat Club with somebody else? But the 4-on-3 thing, kind of weird. But it's also going to tell some stories between Hangman and the Elite. They had his back. But the problem with this is it all comes across as being, Degrassi. Like there's always a level of soap, especially in WWE, like especially through NXT and the Bloodline stuff. There's going to be some soap opera there. It's all about how you portray it. You can either portray it like, Jey Uso, Roman Reigns, and those guys, which is high level, at least decent theater. These guys aren't, Robert De Niro or anything like that, but it's at least decent theater. Versus, we're going to do some kind of Tubi original film, like you gotta do something a little bit better. And I'm really interested in how they're going to portray the Hangman Page Elite stuff without it looking corny, without everybody looking, just whack and, emasculated and everything. If it comes across as being cool, I'll be okay with it. But something tells me the likelihood of that is minimal. Okay? But I did indeed like the finish, or the end of the show that had the Elite with Hangman and then the Blackpool Combat Club backing off. I would complain about Moxley and Claudio being forced to back off, but no. I'm okay with it. I'm going to go with, basic storytelling. They're bad guys. They're not interested in fighting an equal fight. And they're certainly not interested in fighting a fight where they don't have the numeric advantage. And they're bullies. So this doesn't work for them. They'll come back later. QTV. So what are you going to do with Powerhouse Hobbs now he's the TNT champion? Somebody who knows the inner workings of the wrestling business. What would you do with Powerhouse Hobbs? Big, muscular, kind of scary black dude. What would you do with him now that he's finally gotten to the point where he's a champion in your company? Would you say surround him with job guys and do bad comedy? Or would you, he's out there mean bugging, daring somebody to fight him, or demanding somebody fight him, or going out there picking a fight, or going out there gloating about the fight he just won? If you picked sit around in a room full of jabronis who I couldn't name, I've watched every episode of AEW Dynamite. Every single one. I have not missed a single episode of AEW Dynamite. I know 2 people in that room. QT Marshall, Powerhouse Hobbs. I have no idea who the rest of those people are. I'm just looking at them like I don't know. Who is this guy? So they decided to do a QTV where QT Marshall is talking about journalistic integrity. So we're back on that tip. And then they decided to do some jokes where who really broke into Wardlow's car. And it was some job guy who hangs out with QT Marshall who broke into Wardlow's car and stole his TNT title. Like who cares? Like, so what? You stole the belt. So like this it didn't mean anything. Like if it had actually affected the storyline or something like that, or affected his title run, okay, but it kind of didn't. It didn't. Second, they made some really bad Batista jokes about Wardlow. Basically, they even used Batista's name once in this thing. I don't. What was this? Why does this happen? And then I think some people actually noticed that this thing looked a lot like it was shot on NXT, even with some of the exaggerated characters and stuff like that, which is true. I just wish they'd actually used somebody's name. But they basically called Wardlow a bargain basement Batista and a bunch of other stuff that seemed very unfair. And in a show where you already mentioned Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. Why are we talking about Batista? Why would you remind people that, he's a lot like Batista? I mean, everybody's already saying it, but you as a person should not be. Like, we got guys using Job Guy on TV. It's just, it all comes across as real Bush League, if you ask me. I know nobody asked, but you asked, whatever. So, Powerhouse Hobbs apparently is going to have an open challenge. Whoop, not open. Phoenix accepted the challenge. Hey, Powerhouse Hobbs versus Phoenix. That's cool. I would like to watch that on this show. But, no, we didn't get that. We got Orange Cassidy and Jeff Jarrett. And then we got the Blackpool Combat Club again. So, no room for you, Hobbs. What did you think you were going to do this evening? Shuffle on back to Rampage where you came from. The Acclaim did a rap song. It was stupid. The Jericho Appreciation Society said that they like rap, meaning, what was it, Matt Menard and Cool Hand Luke something. Those two guys like rap music and said that they were very entertaining. They may even call them sports entertaining, and will give them their third and final chance to join the Jericho Appreciation Society because they got clowned the first 2 times, apparently. I don't care. Who cares about this? Moving on, the Outcasts. They cut a promo. Boy, did they cut a promo. So, Ruby starts the show with, once upon a time, the grass was greener in AEW. And then, she blamed Britt Baker and all of them for ruining the grass of AEW. Called them bitches that are not house trained because they're pissing all over the place. Saraya says that without them there would be no division and that she herself is a miracle. She came back to save everybody. Toni Storm got on the microphone and said she was unappreciated. She was an interim champion. And says that the people don't know what they want, so they are there, they being the social outcasts, the outcasts, are there to give you what you need, which is change. They went about running down the women's division, calling them untitled rookies. Then Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter ran down to the ring, immediately got jumped, beat up, and Ruby Soho and Toni Storm and all of them, they look very strong here. Out of nowhere, here comes Sky Blue and Willow Nightingale, and oh my God, it's Riho. And Riho is running around with like a fly catcher. It's supposed to be like a pipe or a bat or something like that. I think it's supposed to be a pipe. But in her hands, it looked like one of those silver fly catchers that you put up if you get flies in your house. I'm pretty sure a pipe in her hands is probably... If there was anybody on the face of the earth outside of maybe an infant, I wouldn't mind hitting me with a pipe. I think Riho would probably be the one. I don't think she's got the strength in her elbows to really be able to swing a pipe and actually do some major damage. Now, of course, I'm exaggerating because if a baby hits you with a pipe, you're probably going to get hurt for sure. But Riho, I would not be too concerned about her at all. I'd kick her in her chest. But this is wrestling. It's TV, which means that everybody had to run away. They had to run away. They had to flee from Riho, who is tiny, just because she had a pipe. And scene. That was it. Oh, Jesus. Jesus H. Christ. Okay. So, let's do a overall grade of this show. Is the bar mitzvah segment was fun. I didn't mind it. Unfortunately, I'm not a big fan of the whole pillars, even though I do like that they have the concept. It's a unique concept for AEW. I just don't think you throw everybody at the match because not everybody's a winner. Jarrett not winning was disappointing, but also not surprising. I did not care at all for the main event. It's just not my style. I'm sick of all these trios matches. All these matches with everybody just jumping off each other and jumping onto each other. It's just all very annoying at this point. And but I did like the bar mitzvah. And I did like the conclusion of the show with the tease of the Elite reuniting. So there's some stuff here to like, but I guess Taya showing up was fun, I guess. But I'm kind of disappointed in what they're doing with Jamie Hayter now. It's like the whole thing with Jamie Hayter is supposed to be Hayter hits hard and all this kind of stuff. And we haven't seen Hayter hit anybody in a little while. They're not really putting any contenders in place, and there's nothing real. Sure, they're the outcasts, but they're not showing us who the contender is from the outcast. Who's going to be the one that's going to challenge her and probably beat her for the belt? That's not where we're not seeing that yet. So that's unfortunate. Also, this seems to be the division. The division seems to be the outcasts. That's it. And then on the outskirts, like along the edges of what we got here, is whatever Jade Cargill is doing. But at least they brought in somebody new with Taya Valkyrie. That ought to be fun, I guess. So what did you guys think of AEW Dynamite from March 15th, 2023? I'll give it a C-. That's the best I can do, dog. And it's just the best I can do. All right, do all the YouTube things. I'll talk to you guys later.